Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Today on the podcast, we're doing a roundup episode with a couple of guests from 999 Reset. Now, I recently travelled alongside three other firefighters from London Fire Brigade. Siobhan, Dan and Sam. You'll know Siobhan from a previous episode as well, aka The Fireman. You can find her on Instagram. And we were heading up to the beautiful Scotland, to Ben Nevis, to take part in a awareness event for 999 Reset. Now, what is 999 Reset? 999 Reset is a 3-day event held in Scotland, although they have plans to do some across the UK, maybe in Kent in the next couple of years, so keep your eyes out for those. And it was set up by a group of fire service personnel who had previously formed a walking and climbing group. Now, some of these individuals are former forces, and they wanted to help set up a group to help people navigate the terrain, provide advice, and help people enjoy the outdoors safely. It was great to just take people out and about, introduce them to walking and climbing in a safe manner, and initially it was purely from a practical point of view, giving advice on things like boots to wear, how to behave in winter conditions, and all that sort of thing. But Andy and Dougie, two of the main founders for it, found that people were starting to open up, talk about the work, talk about their roles in the emergency services, which, of course, involves an amount of certain unpleasant and traumatic experiences if you're a first responder. And it kind of had this growing thing that they needed to provide a safe and open space for people to do this, where like-minded people could have that support network doing stuff in the outdoors. So the success of that initial group and the growth of it sparked an idea to bring even more people together, but with a greater focus on support and well-being, as well as all of the usual outdoor activities. So last year I went to their first event, and it kicked off with a series of short films talking about guest speakers. They had some big climbers there, people that had gone up Everest, people that had been in the forces, people that were in the fire service, people in the ambulance service and the police. And over the weekend, attendees heard from lots of different speakers and also did a host of activities, including windsurfing, open water swimming, CrossFit, scrambling, yoga, walking, navigation, and all kinds of stuff. So Andy Goldie, who was the big push behind a lot of the events that 999 Reset do, and the one who put on this Ben Nevis challenge, invited myself some time ago to come and join him up Ben Nevis, where he will be camping for, I think, 5 days or maybe a week in total. And again, you'll hear that in the podcast, my apologies. And we wanted to join them, go up there, record a podcast together, give some awareness to the traumatic events that people go through in the first responder community, and bring some focus onto the kind of mental space, clarity, and the safe community and situational comfort people find in doing outdoor activities together as an opportunity to share these things, to try and dissipate some of that mental fog and maybe help them navigate through some of those cognitive challenges. So the challenge was set. My adventures took me first to London to meet up with Siobhan and the team, and then we headed from Gatwick to Glasgow and landed and travelled to Fort William Fire Station. Met up with a group of firefighters there. We did a quick bagged shuffle, got all of our kit sorted, and we headed up the mountain. And today you're going to hear how it went. You're going to hear a debrief from the event and talking a little bit around what 99 Reset is all about, the benefits we take from it, and people share some really, really impactful personal stories in today's episode. And I'm really grateful for their honesty, their transparency, their openness, and just the fact that they knew how sharing these events is holding out that olive branch and showing others that they are not alone in the challenges they go through. We will all face a traumatic event of some kind. It may be a personal challenge with your health. It might be a loved one. It might be something you do in your operational duties. If it hasn't happened to you yet, I'm sorry to say it is coming. It may be around the very next corner. So know that when you do face that inevitable challenge, there are people who have been through something similar. It will not be the same as yours, but these people are there to reach out to. These people are there, and myself included, and everyone you hear on today's episode, and many more people that have, of course, not been on the episodes, not been on the podcast. But there's a lot of support out there. Please know that you're not alone. And if you would like to come and join on one of the 999 Reset events, it's wicked. You'll love it. And you might meet me and the team there as well. Hopefully we won't spoil it for you. You might enjoy seeing us. And these things are just great. So it's another opportunity for us to introduce something like this to the wider community and revisit why events like this are so important to the longevity of somebody's career and their overall fulfillment and ability to enjoy their day-to-day life with their loved ones and their colleagues and themselves. You know, being able to be with yourself without feeling the mental torture of the internal chatter. So I hope you take a lot from today. And if you want to reach out, have a look in the notes. You will see some contact details for people there. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Siobhan Priest, aka the Fire Mum, Andy Goldie, and the team from 999 Reset. I'll see you on the other side. So we're just going to talk about today, and we're going to talk about mental health, and we're going to talk about the purpose of 999 Reset.
Yes.
That's going to be the goal. Because I think there's a cool analogy to pull away from today. I remember, do you know who Sir Edmund Hillary is?
Sorry?
Do you know who Sir Edmund Hillary is?
Yeah, the first guy to summit Mount Everest.
Yeah. So we had a great quote that was, "It's not the mountain that we conquer, but ourselves." And I always love that, because obviously the purpose of us coming here widely was the 999 Reset.
Yeah.
And then the micro challenge was, we're going to climb Mount Nevis.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we succeed today?
Yes.
We did. Why do you think we succeeded?
Because we came together in the first instance from across the UK, and we are all fitting well at the end of it. So therefore, it's a success.
And also for me, when it comes to mental health, it's like, don't make progress the enemy of perfect. So when you think, what's the destination? Oh, I'm going to be of perfect mental health and fitness. Okay, bollocks. Who has that? You know, it's like fleeting, isn't it? It's like the weather. It's like sometimes you're in that sweet spot and you're in the groove, but most of the time, how many of us actually feel like we're in a great mental space on a day-to-day basis? I certainly don't. I'm struggling addiction, divorce, my own fitness, my own imposter syndrome. Yeah. Does anyone like me? Am I worth being here? Shiv, stop shaking your head. That was a rhetorical question. But you know what I mean? So it's like, when we have this element of, you're going to go to a mental health weekend, or I'm going to go and see a psychologist, or I'm going to go and speak to someone about my mental fitness. Okay, that's never, it's like a shower. It's not a pilgrimage. You're not going to do it once and then be better forever. We're talking about practices and things that you need to engage with on a daily basis to help keep you in that sort of mental space. Why are you so passionate about this? Why do you care? Why the bloody hell have we all come from all around the UK to do this ridiculous thing?
The reason you have all came around from across the UK is because you also care.
Okay. And Shiv just wanted to get on something cool, to be honest. She wasn't really that bothered.
That's
she just thought there was a fun trip going for free.
Yeah, I was definitely just in it for that.
I know. Yeah. So I know that the outdoors is fitting for my mental health. I know that. So I used to say with the guys who go walking and climbing with is, it's good for the soul. That was what the word was maybe 20 years ago. Why are you going out the doors? Oh, it's good for the soul, because we didn't speak openly about mental health. But actually what we were saying to each other in secret was, it's good for my mental health. But it wasn't cool to be mentioning poor mental health at that time.
What do you think it is about today's age in terms of like the speed that we live at, our engagement in so much technology? I mean, Shiv, you know, you live in the capital of the UK. It's hustle, bustle, race, go, metrics, get the money, do the thing. I would argue that makes it more challenging for our mental health when, you know, so many people do say, I feel so much better when I spend some time outdoors. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
Well, I think that's a very individual thing though, isn't it? Like, some people thrive when they're in the countryside and some people thrive in the chaos. And we have got pockets of tranquility in London, actually, Pete.
I know you have.
We have got.
But you specifically make them because we know the value.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And like getting it out of where, you know, getting out of the chaos, definitely, especially coming here, like even just getting off the plane and being like, oh, it's just stunning. And yeah.
Just the drive in, you know, Craig was kind enough to drive us for hours and hours, and we were just staring out the window like little puppy dogs.
Yeah, being next to the water, like, you know, all of the beautiful like water and the forest that we've been through, like it's just nice, you know, to just be in that environment. And so
I agree with what you're saying about balance though, because you know when people say about work-life balance, so I know get the balance right, I think that's like an art form because it's very personal. Like for me, I love to work. I love to make progress and stuff. So even when I've been in the fire service, I've always had a couple of businesses running on the side. now it's still fitness and assessing and the podcast and everything like that. Like for me, I only want, maybe it's like a London analogy, I only want a little bit of, I'm going to get out and walk my dog in the morning, and then I'm happy to just hustle all day for the next 9 or 12 hours. But for everyone it's a little bit different, isn't it? Because everyone needs a bit more of a balance, I suppose.
Yeah. So being here for the week, I'm still hustling.
Yeah.
So like what you're saying there, it's that active mindset where I'm comfortable, I'm getting the best of both worlds, right? So I've managed to locate on the Ben for a week. Okay, we've relocated to here, but I'm sure you'll come across why we're here anyway later on. But so yeah, getting out and outdoors, but then engaging with the public. I'm still hustling, I'm still trying to raise awareness, I'm still trying to raise funds, so we're hustling with the public, but also improving the mental health side of things, because I've got the opportunity to do it from a tent instead of from a computer. Sitting sending emails, hi, can you support us, instead of having that verbal communication.
Why do you choose to try and do it? I think there's a thing in like the first responder community, there's like this hero complex where it makes it easier to try and fix everybody else. I certainly had it when I joined. I was an addict at the time, and my life was a walking bin fire, but I liked the idea of helping other people because it meant I didn't have to focus on my own shit. Do you know what I mean? There's something about us being able to help other people, yet our life sometimes, I can say for me as a firefighter, tends to be in a lot of chaos. But there's something about us that we want to fix other people, but sometimes that's a nice distraction, isn't it?
And is that actually probably what we're doing?
Maybe. Is that what you're doing?
Is that
because I know you've had a very tumultuous, long journey with your own personal health.
Yeah, that's right. And I would say that, is that what I'm doing? I think I've got the opportunity to do what I'm doing, so that's the difference. Do I need to get access to the outdoors? 100%. Can I become quite destructive with too much spare time and not enough activities? Probably. But for me, the outdoors, and I've never really spoken about this actually before, so we'll take it quite slowly and gradually. The most recent, I would say, mental health thing, and I'm prepared to speak openly about the mental health side of things, and not everybody knows this. So my brother took his own life about 4 years ago when he was 40 through alcohol addiction, drunk himself to death. And to me, there was a lot going on there that we were unaware of. And I know that he didn't have the opportunities. Well, listen, he was very successful, and that's a funny thing, right, Pete, is when you look at, or society can often class addicts as people who are dysfunctional or lack motivation, but it's bigger than that. And it turns out that he was actually neurodiverse, and we never knew at the time. We didn't know when I was growing up what neurodiverse meant. So he was dyslexic, 100%. ADHD, 100%. Didn't know how to switch off. He ran a successful company, and then what he would do is he'd have a few beers at night to chill out, and then slowly but surely over the years, that picture plant of the fly sitting on the tip just started creeping in, and before you knew it, was too far for him to go back out again. And ultimately it cost him his life. And I know that I don't do this to stop me processing it, but this is the first time I've ever spoken openly about the situation that I had with my brother, ever. And guys at work don't even know this. But I'm in a place now where I can identify what would have made it better for him. So he had successful business, and what people would look at from the street is a successful business, nice house, nice cars, holidays a year, but that individual was struggling. And for some reason, we were not prepared to talk about it. We didn't see it or identify it. And
I can certainly, like you say, the difference between empathy and sympathy. My journey was nowhere near the same as that, and I know you've shared your journey with your brother before, but there is something about the word addict, isn't there? Because I find it really provocative. If you're an artist, we'd say you're passionate or creative. We'd say if it was business, we'd say you're driven. But if you take a substance, then you're an addict. Because I know it's a character trait, and I know I'll always have it. If you try and deny it, it's like trying to push a balloon underwater. It's going to pop up somewhere. It's going to pop up in your personal life. It's going to damage your professional life. You'll lose control of it. It's like having a branch open, you can't switch it off. You've got to point it in a healthy direction and have something healthy to apply it to. Otherwise, it just turns on you or turns on your family. It's a very difficult thing to process, I think, ultimately. When you talk about processing it and grief and things like that, we always talk about these stages of grief, where it's anger, frustration, crying about it. Then sometimes we get closure, but there's so many things. It doesn't run in that logical path, does it? It triggers us back, like the moments when you empty your brother's house, or talk to me about that kind of grief element, because so many people, whether it's the death of a career, the death of a loved one, we see this a lot with people going through retirement. Like, a big part of their identity dies. Yeah. Because for some unknown reason in first responder community, we identify ourselves as firefighters. It's like we're sat in an on-call fire station now. Most of them don't tell their friends and family that they're an accountant. They'll tell them they're a firefighter. Yeah. Because it's something about, we make it so much of our identity, don't we?
This episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the center of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show.
And you mentioned something there, I can't remember what it was, regarding the connection.
The cycles of grief.
Cycles of grief. So I would say that it's like the change curve that we use in business and stuff, right? And then that anger onion that we speak about in mental health and wellbeing, and it's like the denial in the first instance, can't believe it, no way, what happened? Yeah. And then and then there's that guilt element of...
It's my fault, it's your fault, should I have helped more?
Like, my brother and I and two lads who are actually coming up to meet me on Saturday, used to go away on holidays, like snowboarding, just we were always hanging around together, and my brother and I were like proper, really good friends, not just brothers. But the cycle of grief, that denial, no chance, that can't be right, and then you kind of put it to the back of your mind and you get these overwhelming surges of grief that hit you quite hard some days, and you can't function. But what I've learned is allow that to come through, spend the time pondering on what could have happened and what should have been, and then allow it to leave again. But if you keep trying to deny it, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and before you know it, you're in a lot of trouble.
It's funny because when we were walking back down earlier, we were talking about this exact same thing. We were saying that when significant things happen in your life, grief being one, it can either make you or break you, and sometimes it can do both. Yeah. And it's crazy how, only now, like with becoming more accepting of various mental health conditions, we're learning to work through those emotions and processes. And it's really interesting how we all cope with those differently.
I think there's an interesting one as well about, because the one we were talking about was personal to myself, wasn't it, what we were relating to? But sometimes... Someone's telling me about the trauma triangle or the chaos triangle the other day, and it's like there has to be a victim, a perpetrator, and a hero in order to complete the triangle. And sometimes the victim is already taken. So like if you're petrified of spiders, but then you go into your daughter's room and there's a massive spider in the corner and she's petrified, she's in the victim role now, so you can't be the victim anymore. So what do? You sort the spider out, don't you? Yeah,
get your partner.
Yeah. And again, when I relate that, you just have to, because I can't be that anymore. I remember hearing a great story. A friend of mine was petrified of heights, and her kids were convincing her to go on this cable car, and she finally went on it with her two kids, shaken to death, and she went on it, and on there was another mother and a child, and the child was absolutely petrified of heights. So she couldn't be the victim anymore because everyone's focus was on this small child. And I think that is also an effective distraction or an effective coping mechanism for us when we go to incidents. And people say to us, how do you deal with a really traumatic incident? Well, I'm not really experiencing it because I'm there doing a job. I'm not just there by the next sound of the road going, Jesus Christ, look, there's two people dead in that car, and I'm going to stand here and watch the whole thing unfold. You're there doing a role, and you're helping. But I think when it comes to our own mental health, I don't think we know where to reach out for it. We don't know where to recognise the help. My biggest frustration is around, we don't have psychologists in a lot of fire and rescue services. So when you come in and do your entry selection tests, you do a fitness test. And every year, you do another fitness test to make sure you're physically fit. But the biggest lost time thing now is psychological health and stress.
Yeah.
It's not musculoskeletal injuries that took over it about 5 years ago. It's not bad backs anymore. It's stress and mental health. And I think if you, or if I, as a watch commander in the UK, I go off sick for 12 months. We know a lot of people that have been off for a lot longer than 12 months. I get paid about 45k a year. But to actually replace me is going to cost a lot more than that because you're messing around with overtime and this, that and the other. If you paid a counsellor or a psychologist 50k a year in your service, when they come in, you do a psychological testing, and then every year, mandatory, because if you've got a bad back and you know you're going to see Shiv, the fitness expert for whatever brigade, you'll wait till you see her go, I'm going to see Shiv in a few months, I'll tell her I've got a bad foot, what does she recommend, or she might give me a little program for it, blah, blah, blah. But you might see her, it's a complete waste of your time because most of the people in this room are fit and healthy. But if I knew I was going to see Andy every year, and 9 times out of 10, you'll go, Pete, how's work? How's life? Talk to me about what have you been up to lately? And I go, Andy, I'm absolutely fine, we're really enjoying it, really enjoying the watch. Family's good, good holidays, little ones just started school, blah, blah, blah. Waste of your time. Yeah, but if I know I've got something in the back of my head and go, yeah, I was looking forward to speaking to you actually, because I'm not sure what it is, but I'm not, I don't feel like I'm showing up as myself at the minute. I'm actually feeling a bit anxious about going into work. We've got a few new people on the watch and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Yeah. Or I went to a job and I feel like I made a mistake. Everyone says I did a great job, but ultimately they died. Yeah. And I actually don't think we did do much of a great job, and I think I was a little bit reluctant and I'm actually a little bit scared now. Yeah. If I knew there was the ability to have that conversation, I think we'd have a lot more valuable conversations on a regular basis. Yeah. Because otherwise I've got to hit the big red help button, and everyone goes, oh shit, you need to see the counsellor. Fucking, you all right? Shit, what's the matter? And how do we do that?
So I just got to take it back a little bit there, because when we were talking about the grief process and then the association with my passion to 999 Reset, and then I started speaking about my brother and the connection there. The conversation around my brother is not directly linked to the motivation for 999 Reset. I suppose it is in a way. It's like, so when that had happened to me, I hit the hills, I hit the outdoors, and I just keep myself busy getting that fresh air and sitting in a tent, bringing my world, as we said earlier today, into a small space where everything's manageable.
I remember speaking to your wife about this actually, the first 999 Reset, because she spoke about how you did or didn't process it.
Yeah, I know.
Because it has a big effect on our families as well, doesn't it?
100% it does.
Yeah.
Because whether you like it or not, your behaviour will change, your tolerances are different, and if you're not prepared to speak openly about it, then it will only have one outcome. Because the people that are there to support you, if they're not being listened to and you're not taking their point, they will potentially and can go elsewhere. Or if you neglect them because you're trying to change the way your outcome is. But the 999 Reset thing is based on knowing how it helped me cope, the outdoors helped me cope, and then tying that into my professional job as a operational firefighter, or on the run. And I'm a mental health wellbeing champion within the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. They've put a fantastic programme together and they're rolling them out across the service. So then that kind of gave me the opportunity. It's like, hang on a minute, so I've experienced some excessive trauma and grief recently. I've fixed that through getting access to the outdoors. I'm sitting in a health and wellbeing training class because emergency service personnel are suffering with their mental health. I'm thinking, well, I reckon I might have myself and Dougie, who you met last year, may have the tools to try and bring something together. Because so the outdoors helped me. Let's try and create an outdoor environment. Let's try and create an outdoor event that blue light responders can come to. And the unique thing about it is it's a tri-service, and that's where we're making a big difference. It's tri-service. We're not keeping it in-house. We're not just trying to keep firefighters, police and paramedics separately. We work operationally together at incidents. We all turn up, work together effectively for a good outcome, and then we all go away. And the information that I've looked at shows that obviously the occupational and the clinical psychologists are really important when it comes to supporting people in those times of need. But the best outcome is peer support, and being able to sit in a room with everybody here. You've come up from London.
Because also they're the first people to recognise a change.
Definitely.
Something's changed. Andy's more or less social, he's more or less angry or emotive, or he's just a bit vacant. Because if I met you for the first time, how am I to know? I haven't got a blueprint for you. Yeah. But it's knowing that something in that person has changed. The team here at the podcast are extremely excited to announce our brand new partnership with Patrol Store UK. Patrol Store has been serving the UK's police, fire and emergency communities and first responder sector since 2008, providing leading brands such as Hikes, Magnum, 511, Nebo, Op Zulu, Highlander, AKU and many, many more of our favourites. They are now also supplying bespoke uniform, PPE and station workwear to fire services around the UK. So for all our listeners that are part of your USAR, your HEART team, your ISAR team, your armed response teams, your fire investigation, your NALO, your hazmat and all of the training departments that have got your own budgets, be sure to get the absolute best for your team at a realistic price by contacting Aaron and the team at Patrol Store and referencing the Firefighters podcast. Patrol Store will also be taking part in our listener competition giveaways as well as providing unique discounts to podcast listeners. So for people that are always asking about Hikes boots as an example, that is one unique discount code that is coming to you very soon through Patrol Store. We've also got some incredible bags. I mean, the Op Zulu bags are a game changer. So you know the really Gucci and expensive tactical black bags that everyone's using in CrossFit workouts and taking to the gym and taking to stations? Well, they've basically got that, but it's made better and costs less, because they're not slapping some Gucci expensive brand name on it and it's giving you what you want on a first responder salary. Be sure to keep your eyes in the notes of the episodes for links to unique offers and discount codes. And if you're looking to buy well and buy once, be sure to get in the notes and head over to Patrol Store UK. Now back to the show.
And the paramedics as well, so they've shared a job, as Brian was talking today about, working with paramedics closely at the roadside or at RTCs. So then we go away, they go away, and that peer support could actually be the person that you've worked from a partner agency.
Because a lot of them work alone.
Exactly, and the paramedics are working alone. They're really flat out. But if we can bring them
That's
together,
why their careers are shorter. I think the average length is like 9 years now. For
7 years for a paramedic.
7 years for a paramedic.
I just
Terrible.
read that recently.
It's terrible. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like how can we acknowledge that and go, well, I don't even know what the answer must be. They're saying, they're just weak, or the training's not good enough, or they don't want it enough. Yeah. Maybe it's another chapter of life. Like, we like pointing fingers, we don't like pointing thumbs and going, how have I failed that person? Why don't they have the same vigour and excitement and interest and passion as they did 7 years ago? Yeah. Because I don't believe that it's just that,
it's fatigue.
It's fatigue.
Empathy
fatigue, mental fatigue.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure everybody sitting in the room here is all professional emergency service personnel who respond to jobs. If you'd say, think of something right now, of something that sticks in your mind from an incident, it comes in a heartbeat, it's there. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you've not forgotten about it. No. It sits there, and then suppose, depending on where you're working, and I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're in a city centre or a semi-rural area, the trauma, it builds up and builds up. It must build up, and then it gets to that trigger point that you can't cope, and then you're off sick. So maybe that's the 7-year cycle that you're discussing here with paramedics. The mental health conditions that the teams are dealing with, when we speak to them, because we share our station now with paramedics, and they're just constantly, they're never in, they're out the door, they're held up in waiting rooms, clients, ambulance bays outside A&Es.
I always laugh about that, not laugh about it, but like we share a station with police and ambulance, and obviously they always laugh and joke because we go to bed and they don't. But I'm like, if my neighbour's not treating their kids very well, doesn't mean I should also treat my kids badly. I'm like, all first responders should be getting adequate rest and recuperation and downtime. We want them to be performing at their best. Yeah. So this whole, one day the fire service will lose all of their beds. Why can't we give them back? So I don't even think paramedics ever had them, in fact, given back. I don't think police certainly never had them. No. But we know that's not sustainable. I mean, I don't know the data on the police's career, but I'll bet they don't seem to have a tremendous amount of fulfilment. Most of them just failed to get in the fire service, bless them. Do you know what I mean? I think... No, but they do speak fondly about what we do, and I couldn't do their job. I have a tremendous amount of respect for it. But I think just because they're not being looked after properly doesn't mean we should apologise, because we're trying to prioritise our health and well-being a little bit longer. We're supposed to be working until we're 60, 65 now. I don't know what sort of delusion we're under, even just in our physical health, let alone our mental health. And what's going to be left of you when that's over?
How many operational firefighters do you know at 60 years age?
I know one's 62, Alan Smith, who runs in the British Firefighter Challenge, but he's a unicorn. So he's very, very rare. And
that's the problem why it's so rare.
And he struggles with his own mental health, which is why he still does things like Firefighter Challenges, because he needs to find that community of passionate people to help, not keep him afloat. I know Alan very well, but we've had many great conversations. And he has many, many struggles. and that's why he puts himself tactically in these places that help him fill up his own mental cup, because I think we need to do that.
100%.
Yeah.
We have to fill that cup up. Of course we do, right? Because it just keeps getting drained.
So take us to today. We came up here to Scotland.
Yeah.
We're going to climb Ben Nevis. That was the aspirational goal.
Yeah.
We thought we're going to come and nail this and crush it. But there's actually so many things outside of our sphere of control, which is why I think it's a nice template. As I was having a nice warm shower earlier, thinking about our conversation, I was like, was this a failure? You know, when we think about what was the goal, how can we reframe the goal?
Yeah.
What was the interpretation? What did we come here for? I'm sure we all actually came here for different reasons. We probably didn't all come here to climb a mountain, because I could climb a mountain any time. I don't have to come all the way to Scotland to do it. I came here because of you, because we have a relationship.
And we appreciate that.
And just an excuse for Shiv to spend some more time with me, because I know she misses me a lot when she's not around, you know. So lots of multiples of all this sort of stuff. But talk to me about the things outside of our sphere of control when we're trying to better ourselves or go for a goal.
Okay.
Because we didn't succeed today by the standard metric of climbing a mountain.
Exactly, by that standard metric of climbing a mountain. And that started for me on Monday when I arrived here, straight off the night shift.
And you've been up and down it
I know.
quite a few times these past few days, halfway.
And I've still not been to the top of it yet. And I had...
On this trip, you've been many times.
Yeah, many times. I'd say circa 15 times I'm doing the bend. From different aspects, same day, north face in winter, and then the main path from the visitor centre. And I try and use it, not stop using the word tourist path, and the local Lochaber Mountain Rescue try to get that name taken out, because the minute you mention a tourist path, then it tracks people who are tourists that think that it's accessible.
Well, I think you were saying like 4 people got taken off the mountain the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that was what the Lochaber Mountain Rescue team that I was speaking to on Monday had said, that hypothermia on top, on the zigzags, and it's, well, I don't know if it was on the way up or down, but getting cold and wet, and then slowing down, they lose a couple of degrees body heat, and then it's hypothermia. So.
Take me back to that sphere of control, sphere of influence, things outside of our sphere of control.
Yeah. I think that the key word there is control, and we often think that to control something means that we own it, and actually we don't own the outdoors, so therefore we can't control it, right? So,
do you think we own all of our mental health?
Say again?
Do you think we own all of our mental health?
That's a deep question.
That's a deep question.
Do we own our mental health?
Well, I always say the only things in your sphere of control are your thoughts and your actions. But even those are heavily influenced by the people around you. Heavily influenced.
Yeah, they are.
You've got to stand guard at the fortress of your mind on a daily basis, and unless you want to live a completely isolated life, a lot of people are going to influence your mental well-being, like the weather.
Yeah, and it did.
Ever heard the quote that true leaders are readers? Well, we believe this is true. Listeners often ask where we go to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the sector globally. So there are a few key publications which I encourage you to go check out. Now, if you're looking for insights on disaster management, fire protection and firefighting, for us, we go to Asia Pacific Fire Magazine. And when you're looking for the latest on the Middle East fire protection industry and fire services, it's Gulf Fire Magazine. And our quarterly check-in is with International Firefighter Magazine, reporting to municipal, industrial and fire training professionals. Now, next up, and widely accepted to be the global voice for passive and active fire protection, this is a good one. It's International Fire Protection Magazine. And finally, and perhaps the most relevant to our predominantly UK audience, I'd strongly suggest subscribing to UK Fire Magazine, reporting to the United Kingdom fire protection industry and fire services. We're really excited to announce that after a long-standing relationship and mutual respect, we've now partnered with MDM Publishing, who bring you all of these essential publications. Because in a world of change, the learners shall inherit the earth, while the learned shall find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. Eric Hoffer said that, and I believe he was right. So keep growing, keep learning, and keep yourself in the know and at the cutting edge of what's happening globally by dropping into the notes. And as a gift from the podcast, you can actually subscribe to any of these publications for free using the link in our notes. Now back to the show.
And it had an impact. On Monday when I arrived, the weather was terrible. When I was on the phone to my wife, I'm like, oh, Lisa, the weather's terrible.
Come and get me.
Come and get me.
These London firefighters are inbound. I don't know what to do with them.
Exactly. So she's like, well, you organised it, and but she's very supportive.
That's not helpful.
Yeah. So her words were, we'll go up tomorrow. I'm like, I know, but the challenge was Monday to Sunday on the summit of Ben Nevis, and and all of a sudden I get that summit fever starting to creep in. The plan, I mean, I don't know how many months ago it was when we started speaking about this weekend, so in the preparation and planning it's been put in before, bringing other people in to join and support the movement of 99 Reset, the printing of the T-shirts, the organising you guys, the flights, the costs.
Craig and Brian, days off, vehicles, sourcing kit, blah, 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 blah. The station we're sat in now.
Sitting and thanking, I'm going to verbally say it's Fort William retained fire station have been absolutely brilliant, you know, and give us a run of the place. But
despite all of that preparation,
there's
things outside of our control.
And it never came. To this moment in time, it's not arrived yet. But actually what I've thought is, the plan wasn't correct in the first place, because until I'd put myself in the situation, so I've sat in the house, I've been back and forth to the station, we've been messaging each other, we've been trying to organise the plan, but I hadn't actually been in the environment. You know, I arrived here and the whole thing's changed. And my idea was on the summit, 7 days, get people who come up, interact with 99 Reset, QR codes, please support us, please donate if you can. But actually when I got there, nobody's on the top of it, Nevis. Well, there's 100 and odd people going up a day, but it's so cold. They're up, they touch the trig point, quick selfie, and they're off. But in my mind, I'm thinking, well, let's get the public when they're up there. And by the power of the nature and the weather that was put upon me from Monday, I found myself relocating to the lower slopes of the Ben in a semi-calm environment. The weather was coming through. And I still,
3 inch deep in water.
3 inches deep water, yeah. I know, I lifted the mat this morning, I'm like, my bones are going to be a bit creaky when I get back to there's dampness everywhere.
Yeah.
But what I found was, when I was coming out for a coffee and I'm sitting with the dog, people are stopping at a natural style, that lower style that came over today, and it's like, all right, how's it going? What's the flag? 99 Reset. And all of a sudden I've been speaking to off-duty police, paramedics, who didn't know it existed. They're now away with the website address, they're away with the Just Giving details. They've purchased some of the patches through a donation to the charity. And then the whole trip has just reinvented itself from being in location. And it's still successful to that point. And then additional pressure. You guys have flown up from London this morning.
Why have you chose to share this experience with us? Why don't you just go for the summit yourself today? Because the group moved at different paces today. Why don't you just suck it off and go for it?
Because I've been up and down so many times before, and I can go up there, touch the top and come back down again. But where's the fun?
Doing it yourself.
Doing it yourself.
I always say you can go faster alone and further together. And this sort of stuff is a great example of where if you just focus on your own mental health, if you just focus on your own achievements, that's not sustainable. It's also not sustainable for you, because you'll be the successful lonely person and then realise I'm not successful at all.
It was the resilience.
Because we all know someone in a big rich house that's got no friends, no family,
100%,
no one to share it with.
Yeah, exactly that. And actually, we didn't reach the summit today, but what we did was kind of reflected slightly on what 999 Reset's all about. It's an introduction to the outdoors event weekend that we've spoke about on another podcast. And actually today, we all learned something about the weather inclement, the challenges it takes, and it's not just walking up and down the hill, because that's the easy bit. It's living in that environment overnight is where the real challenge comes from. So therefore, I would say that we've all learned something. I've certainly learned something, and it's about just making sure that the attention to detail, the weather forecasts, they will always dictate what's going on. And we were talking about it now.
It's the whole thing about the journey, not the destination, because if we'd have achieved our initial goal, we wouldn't have met all these on-call firefighters.
Exactly.
She wouldn't have learned all about the on-call and the retained world. We wouldn't have had...
I also feel as well that like we focus so heavily on the goal.
Yeah.
And for me, I still feel like we've achieved exactly what we came up here to do, like to create awareness for 999 Reset. We've done that in so many ways, not just like for face-to-face with people, online through our different channels, you know. But also the conversations that we've had. Like we had conversations walking back down about exactly what we've just said about grief and mental health and things like that, and how they affect our lives differently. And that's exactly what we came to do. It's just that we took less steps doing it.
Yeah, which is smart, right?
But we're doing more of it now.
And I think that is, well, you're right. But the funny thing is, I felt myself under quite a bit of pressure. But I gave myself that pressure based on what my objective was trying to be, and trying to manage the expectations given the input and costs associated that you guys have put in to come up here. And it's big news that, you know, London fire fighters are coming, you know, north to support 999 Reset. That's massive for us, because we've now got a two-pronged approach, you know, and unfortunately, that you have been here, well, this is your second time, Pete, for this sort of stuff, but you guys have just now all got chips implemented. We know where you'll be next year for support. But we've got that's massive. We've got London firefighters involved in something that Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and our firefighters are trying to create. It's huge.
And Dick and Dom for Sight Help Me and You.
Exactly.
But this is the thing, and then the two sturdy, helpers that tap into the belief. And only by 2, 4, 7 of us sitting in this room will next year potentially be 8. Will next year potentially
Without the support of Brian and Craig, we'd have failed on a colossal stage because none of us came prepared. We didn't have the right stuff with us, we didn't have the right things. We were reliant on the support of others to try and achieve what we came here to do. I love what you said around Shiv about not making it just the goal, because we can write this stuff on walls and we can spend a lot of money on posters and we can create a really Gucci app, but realistically what you're hoping to create is just an environment of psychological safety where people can speak about their mental well-being. The hard thing is there's not a metric to that, because you won't know how many people everyone in the room goes back and speaks to. You're not going to ask them to email you back with a tally and all that sort of stuff. And that's where I think this cultural change is very difficult, because we try and apply those metrics, and that's maybe why we don't have the mental health professional mental health supporting services. Because if you've got a bad back, I can get someone physically trained to give me a metric of when you're going to be back and the severity of your condition and all that sort of. If you've got a bad back and he's got a bad back, they're going to be largely the same, and we're going to try and give you the same sort of surgery or the same sort of rehab. And mental well-being, again, is an art form, and it's often best served in the initial stages by those people around you. We joked earlier, we've just at a meal together and we're effectively sitting here like a watch. If you blurred your eyes and tilted your head, this is probably no different than many watch conversations that happen around services all over the UK and probably all over the world. And that's where probably 85% of those people's mental well-being at work comes from. It's that acknowledgement, it's that support, it's that safety to share things, and that's done from those closest to them, isn't it? It's rarely ever done directly by the service. The services and the brigades can do a lot to create those environments, but I think we have to really think a bit deeper about how we encourage people to have these conversations rather than just writing it on a wall and putting it in a policy.
And I think that's through peers spending time together in an unforced environment where the conversation becomes naturally on a walk, as an example. Where I
always used to say dating was my best place to go on a walk. Because if you sit direct opposite someone, you're like on a date, and then it's like, bang, it's face to face, isn't it? There's loads of pressure. But I used to like taking my dog for a walk, for like going on a first date with someone, because the kind of conversation just flows. If you're not saying anything, it doesn't matter. And then naturally, something will come up and you'll start having a conversation.
And I think that's part of the value of getting people together in the outdoors, because whether you're kayaking, canoeing, open water swimming, whatever it is you're doing, you're spending time together in a relaxed environment, and the conversations are more powerful if they naturally progress. So if you sat in your station and says, right, we're going to have a mental health chat today, come into the mess, sit down, grab a coffee, right, how are you feeling today? I'm alright, okay, good. How are you feeling today? Good, okay, next. Nobody's going to open up.
I'm sure we can all relate to a line manager that maybe some of us have had, and maybe some of us still have, that perhaps do that very thing.
And nobody's going to open up in that environment. So therefore, today, as you discussed on the way down, we were discussing all sorts of stuff. If the conversation starts to flow naturally in that relaxed setting, and that is where the connection comes of the reset movement that we're trying to create.
I think you said an interesting thing last year when I says, what is the goal of the charity? And you're like, well, if it stops us in 15 years, I mean, you said this, in 15 years' time, if it stops one person from doing the unthinkable with their mental health, I've achieved the goal. But I might never know that that's been achieved. Do you know what I mean? Because you never find about somebody that has stopped himself from doing the unthinkable. You only find out when the unthinkable has happened, don't you?
It depends on when you're stopping them as well. If we say, like, I stopped the person going over the edge, well, did I stop them a metre from the edge or 50 metres from the edge? Because if I'm having a bad day and I have 12 of those in a row, I might progressively be getting closer to that edge. Do you know what I mean? You might have stopped me at 50 metres away just by saying, Pete, great to see you today. I haven't seen you in ages. You're covering on the station. How's everything? And you're like, well, shit, no one at my station even cares about me. But I've just come here, and Shiv or whoever's took that little bit of time. God, they remember my kid's name. They remembered I was doing a bloody triathlon recently. It's those small things. You might have turned somebody around there. You say, oh, sorry, were you about to kill yourself? No, I mean, no, I'm not suicidal. But eventually, I think that's when people say, I could never put myself in that mindset. I could. Yeah. Absolutely. I've been very close to that edge sometimes. But even people that have never been close to that edge, what would I need to believe to think the best solution is for me not to be in this world anymore? I think you're only 2 or 3 life changes to get that. Your dog dies, your partner leaves you, you get a disciplinary at work.
And if they come all back to back,
you can get close to that edge real quick.
100%.
I think real quick. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, then chances are you are big into your own personal development and the development of firefighters around you. So I wanted to remind you of our mobile app Drill Book. This is a free training and development resources made by firefighters for firefighters. Heading on to Drill Book, you will find incident debriefs, radio messages, knots and lines, quick reference guides, quizzes every single day. We've got useful links to the ERG, to Web Rescue, to Jessup, Euro Rescue, 10-second triage, National Operational Guidance, and not to mention our daily quizzes where you will find questions on extrication, casualty handling, breathing apparatus, fire development, water rescue, rope rescue, you name it. It is the go-to resource if you've got a spare 5 minutes on the firehouse to develop yourself and those around you. Not only that, if you're looking to get into the fire service, we've got advice on there on interview questions, interview answers. You can build your own questioning in there. And again, remember, this is built by firefighters for firefighters, so you can add your own drills in there. You can pick the drills that you find the most favorite. There is literally hundreds of training ideas, hundreds of drills in there. Remember, this app is absolutely free and it grows every single day down to the contributions of our thousands and thousands of users. It's freely available on Android, Apple, and you will find it in the links for this podcast. Remember, it's called personal development. The clue's in the name. You've got to work twice as hard on yourself as you do on the job. So always be growing, always be developing. Now let's get back to the show.
I think also as well, like looking at it from not such an extreme view, the difference that you're making as well with the charity is not necessarily, you know, perhaps like people taking their own lives, but also people extending their careers because they are able to cope with things. They've got the tools to process what's happening with them. They feel like they can do extra years. And like that makes a difference to everyone's lives, financially, you know, for your own well-being and self-worth and your family and it covers so many different aspects of, you know, your life, looking after your mental health.
Yeah, it does. And you know, the 999 reset weekend was a success last year, right?
Oh, 100%.
Pretty awesome, brother. Absolutely loved it.
For the first time.
Barbecue was one of the best parts of it for me. It was absolutely outstanding. Mat on the barbecue.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But also the paddle board in the walking. I went and did that navigation stuff in the woods. That was wicked. I went with two older ladies and we had an absolute scream for about 2 hours. Absolute hilarious time in the woods.
And then what happens is they come back from the weekend and practice that on their days off, right?
Yeah.
So then, therefore, instead of finishing shift, you get 18 days away. It works in Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. So you get 18 days off. Police, paramedics, they're thinking, oh, I tried something at the reset emergency services weekend in Avonmore, and I liked it. I'm going to explore it. So they know where to focus their funds and their finances on, because outdoor equipment can be expensive, and that's a barrier. And the barrier still exists for us at 99 reset. That there is still costs associated with that because we're not there yet. And we discussed it last year on your podcast that the corporate sponsorship hasn't dropped yet, and we're looking for that because we don't want to be asking firefighters.
So take us to that point, because we're trying to ask people to give them. There's going to be some links underneath it so people can go and see.
Yeah.
Why are we asking for support and why are we asking for finances? Because help explain that barrier and how we overcome that barrier in 999 reset. Because when people go on these weekends, what's the aspirational goal in terms of cost and things?
So the aspirational goal would be that it's a free event. It becomes, there will always be a nominal fee at the start to but to confirm your attendance. If I print,
was that 20 quid last year?
20 quid, and it's 20 quid this year again as well. So if I print 100 tickets and give them, do you want a free ticket? Yeah, everyone will take one. But we can't then confirm whether
and then they don't come up.
They don't come up. So here's 20 quid for
skin
a ticket.
Skin in the game,
yeah. £20 for a ticket.
And realistically, that just pays for a bit of barbecue, or whatever.
Exactly that.
Free drinks, band, all that stuff in there.
That's what it is. And we're constantly trying to open doors and engage with people. The guy that's doing the live music this year is a 7 firefighter. He's coming in because we can't get the band from last year. Nice. Food's been supplied. There's loads of stuff still going on, but there's still a cost associated. So if a police officer attends with their partner, just to say the two of them myself, it can slowly start to mount up by the time they drive to Aviemore.
100%.
They book their camping.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to put people off. What I mean is, like, slowly but surely, we have to be aware that incrementally that cost can come into a couple £100, right? So we circle.
And then if they come on the weekend, and you're right, it's 10 quid for paddleboarding.
Yeah.
It's 5 quid for yoga. They're like, Jesus Christ, we can only afford to do one activity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So then if we get the corporate sponsorship and we get buy-in from the public, because I don't want to be asking emergency service personnel to donate and giving them, me take a sponsorship form and we'll go up to Ben Nevis here, can you all, in the station, can you all give me 50 quid?
Yeah.
You know, that's counterproductive because they're still paying for it. So we need to try and get the funds and the finances from external stakeholders that have got money that they can set aside for charitable companies and organisations. And there's many fitting charities, but to be able to, as a business or an individual who are able and financially stable enough to donate to a charity to support the try services, and I say try because it's easier to advertise, but we're talking about Coast Guard, Mountain Rescue as well. They're invited to the weekend. They see trauma just the same as us, and in some instances back to back, depending on the seasons. Like, as I said, we'll speak to the Lochaber Mountain Rescue leader. They've had 4 hypothermic cases in recent weeks, and then they've not even hit winter yet. The fatalities on the Ben are regular. So these people
to carry out a rescue up there is enormously time consuming and quite expensive in itself.
Yeah, and these are volunteers, right?
Yeah.
The unpaid members who then can come to the 999 reset weekend, and well, they don't need any instruction. And if they need any instruction on map reading, they're in the wrong job. But do you know what I mean?
But the speakers in the evenings, though, we had some amazing speakers last year.
Yes, that's right. We did
was
have some
great.
amazing speakers last year, and some of them were quite profound. And the stories we're telling, and we've got actually there's another, and I'm going to speak because for me 999 Reset is not about our charity. It's about collective charities coming together to support the end user. And often people can become quite possessive and protective of their own charities, and I'm trying to break that down.
We had React, didn't we?
Yeah, React come up. So there's a charity on its own right who came and they're coming this year again to support
Good
React Disaster Response, a humanitarian charity, and they've got volunteers 100 volunteers working across the repurposing skills that people have learned. So if charities can support each other, it's like, oh, hold on a minute here, how much more powerful are we because all the charities are now lining up saying, well, we can do this, so we'll support that side of it. And actually I'm going to mention, I've got her name right, Kerry, who is Invictus Games UK,
Nice.
Intrepid Games UK. So this lady has done something that she set up, like Invictus Games for injured military personnel.
Yeah.
She's setting up Intrepid Games UK, and it's the same thing, but it's for injured emergency service personnel. And it's our first event is I'm getting a plug. Her first event is 2025. We've already had a conversation around what our charity's trying to do.
Have they got a website set up or anything like
Yeah,
that?
they've got a website set up.
Send me the link. We'll put it underneath there. Some
yeah,
people
do that.
can
And
click
she's doing fantastic work. She's taken lobbies into the House of Parliament to get funding, and her and I had a very powerful Teams meeting remotely because she's in England, I'm in Scotland, and she thinks very similar to our mindset at 999 Reset. What we're trying to do is supply a service for the end user, and it doesn't matter who provides it.
Yeah.
Let's stop this ego. It's like, oh well, we provided this. It's like no.
It's amazing what you can achieve when you don't care who gets the credit, isn't it?
Exactly. and she was really good. And actually, I've just spoken to Kerry last week, and she's going to dial in because she won't be able to attend the weekend, but she's going to dial in on Friday night.
Nice.
And she's going to speak to the attendees about the new venture that she's creating behind the scenes. And there's very few people have heard about it. I've already introduced her to the health and wellbeing at Scottish Fire Rescue Service.
Send me details. We'll have her on. It'd be a good conversation because it's certainly something that
Such
I imagine a lot of the listeners will be
motivated
interested in.
lady that's driving the same cause,
Yeah.
looking after people's mental health through sport, activity and outdoor. It's a perfect combination.
I want to be respectful of everybody's time
Yeah,
because I know we're
totally.
tired teddies. Is there any closing points anyone wants to make before we wrap it up?
No, well, other than actually, yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah, you go
Going back to the success for, what today has brought, I just think that we've all been incredibly successful today. We've come here, we've done what we hope to achieve, we've chatted about this.
Even the last 48 hours and the challenges that we faced personally, all of us, in just getting here in our own lives. That was it, because sometimes just getting to the start line is a victory, isn't it?
just been awesome. We've had a great time.
Yeah.
Done exactly what we intended to do.
Yeah.
So if people look underneath here, they'll see a link to 999 Reset. They will see a link to, what was Kerry's called, sorry?
Is Intrepid Games UK.
Beautiful. And what's the date for this year's event for 999 Reset?
20th of September to the 22nd, and it's back at Badagoosh in Abermore.
Beautiful. Love it.
Thank you very much. Awesome.
We'll leave that in there. The Firefighters Podcast was created to recognise, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're around the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.